Dearborn, Michigan is once again in the news. And guess what it's about? Muslims taking over the United States and not assimilating and immigrating here and creating their own laws. What I'm talking about here is the Dearborn, Michigan mayor, Abdullah Hammoud, and he actually is an immigrant from Lebanon, from his father's family side, and he came here. He was a kid and grew up here, went to university. Then he all of a sudden became a mayor because Dearborn is heavily Muslim influenced, but the problem is that they don't actually assimilate. They actually create their own little enclaves as immigrants and practice basically Sharia law light in Dearborn, Michigan. And this mayor basically had the gall to name one of the streets in Dearborn after a man who was writing a newspaper, a Muslim newspaper, Arabic newspaper, and that man basically supports Hezbollah, the terrorist group in Lebanon, and Hamas. And so what happened was recently, 2 weeks ago, he was challenged by a resident of Dearborn, Michigan, who was a Christian white man, and was an American named Ted. You can't get any more American than that. And this guy named Ted basically said to the mayor during the city council meeting that, hey, I understand that you're trying to honor people, but why are you naming the streets after a guy that supports Hezbollah and Hamas, saying that, the blood of the martyrs, Palestinian people should soil the ground of Palestine, and, and we have to resist with drones, bombs, rockets, basically the Israeli occupation of Palestine and Gaza. And so basically what the Christian guy was saying is that, how can you be supporting this when, as Christians and as citizens of Dearborn, we should not call for violence, or support people like that and name the streets after a guy that supports Hezbollah. And he basically said, and you hear in the video, that Hezbollah killed like 200 Americans back in 1983 during the barracks in Lebanon, which would cause Reagan to kind of withdraw from the Middle East for a little while in that area, because it's like we had no business being there because we're just going to get bombed and killed. And so basically that mayor was basically a Hamas and Hezbollah supporting guy. I mean, that guy's nuts. And so he basically told the Christian guy that, hey, you can't live here anymore. You're a racist, Islamophobe. We need to get out of here. Can you believe how unconstitutional and how wicked that is? An immigrant who came here, like myself, I came from Ukraine, but I assimilated to America. But this guy came from, the Middle East and basically became the mayor, supposed to run America, an American city, telling an American guy who's lived there all his life to leave because you don't belong here. That is unconstitutional. You can't even do that. No mayor, no governor can tell an American citizen to you can't live in your house anymore. That's something that would have to be a real crime that would have to be committed, where you'd have to be evicted or put in jail. But this mayor had the gall to do that because he is wicked. And I'm going to show you guys the video right now. Watch this and see how this interaction occurs.
You are a bigot, and you are a racist, and you are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city.
Can you tell us what the issue is?
Yeah,
Before
Councilman
you start
Abraham.
reading things, can you just tell us what your concern is?
Yeah, my concern is he's a promoter of Hezbollah and Hamas. And,
Okay,
and then,
Mr. Barham?
Yeah.
And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you, Councilman Abraham, but your point, you're free to address your point, which I just wanted to make sure you're aware. The sign that was placed in that area is a county road and was done by the Wayne County Executive. It's not under control of the city, Dearborn, or City Council. We can get you the list of their meeting, and you could go there and speak to the county commissioners, but we did not have the authority to overrule that or to suspend it there.
yes, that's fine, and I did understand that, but I know that there were people in this room who were there at the, at the ceremony for putting those signs up, and also it's in Dearborn, so I'm just speaking as a Dearbornite. Just a couple of quotes here. He talks about how the blood of the martyrs, I'm quoting, irrigates the land of Palestine. And then further quotes, he talks about how the terrorists should strike them with knives and with their bare hands and they're victorious. And he also encourages the use of rockets over there. And then another quote from 2022, "We are the Arabs who are going to lift Palestinians all the way to victory, whether we are in Michigan and whether we are in Jenin." So the reason why I mentioned this is that it sounds like he could be inciting violence in Michigan. "Believe me," I'm continuing the quotation. He says, "Believe me."
He's not. I just want to be clear. He can speak for himself.
Well, this is
I'm
speaking
just
for
gonna,
himself.
I'm gonna stop you because he's not a violent person, and you can interpret his words any way you want, but I will guarantee you he is not intending to incite violence anywhere in the world.
Thank you,
Well,
Councilman
He could
Abraham.
defend himself if he were here, but
Sure.
we're not gonna allow personal attacks in our community.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just reading his words here.
That's fine, but
They
you're
seem very-
interpreting his words after you read them. He did not use the word violence, did he?
Well, may I continue the rest of the quote? "Believe me, everyone should fight within his means. They will fight with stones, others will fight with guns, others will fight with planes, drones, and rockets. Others will fight with their voices, and others will fight with their hands and say, 'Free, free Palestine.'" So I just find it very concerning. Did my 3 minutes include
Yeah,
other
no,
people's
no,
words
that's
as well?
okay. There was some dialogue, but
Yeah.
as the councilman indicated, and just, we wanted to make sure you be careful, when you're talking about incitement or riot, there's legal terminations for that. There's legal precedent for that, and that's what the councilman has indicated, that you're drawing a conclusion that you have the right to draw. But as I indicated, the sign was placed from the county in that location.
I also appreciate how he has helped to people to sympathize with, the people of Palestine, people of Lebanon. As you know, I've lived in Lebanon. I also lived in Israel. I've stayed for several weeks in Palestine. And I feel like, but despite that, I feel like having that sign up there, it's almost like having, naming a street, Hezbollah Street or Hamas Street. I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel that's quite inappropriate. And as a Christian, I would like to encourage peace. I'm not just being like, pro-Israel in this and, fight back and that sort of thing, but I would like to encourage peace and not violence. Actually, I'd like to quote from the words of someone who had the same enemy. It was Jewish people who killed Jesus. He was Jewish, but his fellow Jewish people killed him. And he said, "The one who lives by the sword will die by the sword." And what I would like to encourage on the other side is peace. He is called the Prince of Peace, and he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And his death at the hands of Jewish people opens the door to peace between Jewish and non-Jewish people. So
The best suggestion I have for you is to not drive on Warren Avenue, or to close your eyes while you're doing it. His name is up there, and I spoke at a ceremony celebrating it because he's done a lot for this community. And I think it's quite hypocritical to know that you're approaching this podium when you yourself have videos on YouTube standing in front of my mosque saying the cruelest of things about Muslims, about the religion of Islam, because you are a bigot and you are a racist and you are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence. You're somebody who tries to preach it, but in fact you do everything but that. So I just want to put that on the record.
I found his YouTube channel. Here he sings a song he wrote in front of a mosque. I can't find him saying anything bad about Islam. In fact, he seems to express his desire to understand and befriend Muslims.
Wow, this clip, the few minutes that you saw, is absolutely bonkers. I mean, again, as an immigrant from a foreign country, I cannot believe that a mayor like that, who is supposedly an assimilated immigrant to the United States, and you could take this to any other country. I could use this as if I immigrated to Poland or, Zambia or Madagascar or Russia or China. I might not, be culturally sensitive in that area, but if I immigrate there, become a citizen, and then run the city in China or in Poland, I need to assimilate with the culture, because if I don't, then I'm basically invading the culture with whatever I want and bringing my own laws in there, and I'm not even respecting the laws of the country. Now, again, they have to be moral, righteous laws. But the problem with this is that Islam, and this again might sound controversial to you, but I can't help you if you don't understand. But Islam by itself is a political religion, is a subversive religion that when they're a minority, they complain about not having rights. When they become a majority, they start taking away rights from the minorities. And so the problem with Islam and in general, and that. Yes, in America, we allow Muslims and Christians and Buddhists to exist here, but our American law is made up, the Constitution. The Constitution is based on certain principles, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom of movement, freedom of choice. If you don't, even if you say, I hate Islam, I hate Muslims, I hate blacks, I hate whites, I hate Jews, I hate Mexicans, you can say those things and you shouldn't be put in prison because we have a freedom of speech where it allows you to say that. But when you have a foreigner who comes from a land where there's Islamic Sharia law, where there's genital manipulation, where there's cousin marriage. Cousin marriage is something that's not talked about because it's very hush hush, but cousin marriage is actually very prevalent in the Arabic world. I mean, look at the statistics. Pakistan, it's like over 50%, 70%. Turkey, it's like 25%. It causes lowerance of IQ. It causes people to really develop genetic diseases. It causes children to be stillborn. So the thing is that, that's why even the Bible, God banned all of that stuff because it was causing, before the law was given to Moses, God knew what it was doing already to humanity and he banned it. It was a sin. And so a lot of the stuff that is in Muslim culture is imported here that is considered normal there, but not normal here. And so the issue is that even if you're a Christian, you're like, well, we got to love everybody. We got to love everybody. But the thing is that, there's a saying that says, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I don't mean like bow down to Caesar if you're a Christian, because, again, that would be sin, because there's a higher, Jesus is Lord, and so of course you don't bow down to Caesar, but you obey the laws in Rome as much as you can without having to bow down to Caesar. I'm just giving you an understanding of how Christians in Rome live, but they still obeyed the Roman laws. Paul wrote about Roman laws. But the problem is that, even as Christians, when you're living in a certain country, you got to respect the laws of the land as long as they don't go against your, worship of Almighty God, Jesus Christ. Then you go to prison and then you trust God. That you either die and go to heaven, you get killed, or you get persecuted and you get let go, and you trust God through it. But the thing is that the problem with this Muslim mayor is that he's not being persecuted. He's a mayor in an American city, Dearborn, Michigan, which is Dearbornistan, sadly, because Islam has taken over. Sharia law has taken over, in certain ways in Islam, privately. And you have a lot of immigration there without assimilation, which actually is invasion. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that, but it's true. It's just true that when you invade a country, you're not assimilating, you're invading it when you immigrate to a country. So as an immigrant myself, I don't want this guy to be here. He should be exported. He should be exported back to his country because he does not even want to be an American. So as an immigrant myself, who's a naturalized citizen, I can't stand guys like this because they actually destroy the concept of the rule of law and what it means to be, living as an American when you're a guest in this house. And so it has nothing to do, with being a Christian or non-Christian, even though that's important, because the guy that challenged them was a Christian. He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." He was quoting Jesus. He was trying to show the mayor that in the city council that, hey, we should be peacemaking here, not naming streets after people who support Hezbollah, Hamas, because it invites even more, anger and violence, or hatred on one side or the other. So he was trying to create something good where it's you don't name people after terrorist organizations that the U.S. government, knows are terrorists. And so the thing is that what it presents is it presents the case that this Muslim mayor is basically an invader. And he can tell another citizen in Dearborn, Michigan, that he has no right to be there. He has no say to be here. That he's an Islamophobe. He's a racist. When in reality, he wasn't racist. He wasn't said anything that was racist. It's a stupid thing that people say all the time. And number two, Islamophobia is not even existent. It's a fake invention by the left, by the Democrats who invented this term because they didn't want people to persecute Muslims or whatever after 9/11. And so that's only part of 9/11. But the thing is that because of this term that they invented, they basically call anybody that challenges Islam, calls it an evil religion, and calls out Muhammad as a basically a certified pedophile, that calls Islam a warlord religion. It calls anybody an Islamophobe when it's like, I'm not afraid of Islam. I'm just, I don't want a religion that actually, kills other people, running my country. That's more like a healthy fear. That's not like phobia just because I'm afraid of it. It's more like, Muslims, not everyone, but a lot of the Muslim majority countries, they're against freedom of speech. They're against freedom of religion because Muslim majority countries always ban other religions. It's just true. And so the problem with this Dearborn mayor is that he is acting totally against the constitutional law. He hasn't done anything to the citizen, but he threatened him that, like, you need to get out of here because you don't belong here, which is absolutely unconstitutional because the government is supposed to be a servant of the people, and he's not. And so the problem is that we're seeing the tip of the iceberg of what's happening in the United States, and it's not just Muslims. I could use this against Buddhists or Hindus or other people, or even Catholics, because America was a Protestant majority country. But, you can use this argument against other people who refuse to assimilate to a land and a culture. And what they do is that they destroy it from the inside. And so it's something that even a lot of people are afraid to talk about because they're like, well, Jesus said love everybody. And it's like, and it's true. Yeah, I do love everybody. I love the mayor guy enough to share him the truth about Jesus, but I also care about my, the country of America. I don't worship America. I love it because it's my country. It's my land. I care enough about it to make sure that there's tranquility here in the country, that there's tranquility in the cities, that we don't have foreign, Muslim mayors coming in and telling American citizens that have been living here what to do and how they can, bring a concern about a street being named after a terrorist organization. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't even be having this conversation if the mayor was actually very understanding of what Hamas and Hezbollah was. But because that guy supports a lot of the radical Muslims, he's not understanding of what the Christian guy Ted told him. So the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys about this is because there's a problem with the concept of globalism. Globalism was actually an idea from really, yes, before sin created, God would want the world to expand, and, without sin, we could all unite together. But because of sin, if you look in Genesis, you see how people wanted to build a tower of Babel, basically unite as one, and then God basically stepped into the planet, from heaven. And he said, without God stepping in, the humans can accomplish anything they want to, and to even destroy the earth, or try to open up a stargate to heaven, which is what they were trying to do with the Tower of Babel. A lot of biblical scholars believe it was like a portal that was opening up through the tower they were building. So the thing is that because of sin, God actually divided humanity into different nations. If you look at Deuteronomy and Genesis, there was like 72 nations that God divided and then put the sons of God over them. Michael Heiser goes into this. But so God knows that because of man's sinfulness, globalism is actually a very corrupt system, because what it does is it gets rid of people's differences, gets rid of nations and different ethnic groups, combines them as one. And what's what we're seeing today. We're seeing globalism destroy countries. We're seeing mass immigration where it's an invasion. It actually destroys countries like Poland and Britain and Germany, and it makes women afraid because they're getting raped. Literally hundreds and thousands of rapes are happening every single year in these countries because these Muslims, they did not assimilate, they invaded. They invaded because of the globalist leaders that are the New World Order, and they're wanting to do that because of the neocon wars that were done by the past American administration. So they're all working together to create a globalist New World Order. And so, not that Trump is perfect, but when he stepped in, it's kind of like it stopped the whole idea of like, hey, we can't have globalism in America. We can't have all this invasion of these illegals migrants coming in where they basically never assimilate, but they take over. And so why do I talk about this? Well, because if you understand this from a spiritual point of view, you're not seeing this as just a Muslim mayor versus a Christian citizen. You're seeing this as a battle between good and evil, because the Muslim mayor represents somebody who actually believes in Sharia law, privately. Sure, he's a mayor, so he has to abide by the Constitution, hopefully. But privately, we don't even know what he really, ascribes to, and whether he believes he's basically a Sharia or a Quran holding Muslim first, and then basically America is last on his mind. We don't know that. But the danger is that when you have people who don't respect the laws of the land they're living in, like if I moved to Poland, I would have to respect Polish laws. Even though I'm, Ukrainian, we're similar, but it's still, Poland is a little different than Ukraine. I would have to respect their laws. If I was in China and I disagreed with their persecution of Christians, yeah, I'm not going to bow down to Mao or, Xi Jinping. I'm going to preach the gospel, so I'll go to jail for that. But other laws, I would have to still obey in China. I'd still have to be, kind and understanding of Chinese law. I can't be just acting as an American with my understanding of Americanism and then forcing it in China. That would be disrespecting China. And I'm talking about in terms of legal good laws that are in China, not the bad tyrannical laws that we know in America that China has. So what I want to tell you guys is that, in America, we're seeing something that is happening in other countries, but the problem in America is that we can't talk about it. We're seen as racist, Islamophobic, we're seen as evil, xenophobic, when we talk about Muslim invasion. But the problem is that whenever in any other country where Muslims take over, they always go towards Sharia law, and they never really want to practice any of the Bill of Rights. I mean, there is no Bill of Rights in any of the Muslim countries. So that's why what we're seeing is an invasion of America, because if America falls, the whole world falls with it. That's why it seems like as imperfect as Trump is, he does want to bring back, the idea of nationalism, patriotism, where, you protect your country too. Not that you worship it or become fascistic, people say that I'm against fascism too. But the thing is that, you want to honor your country in a way where you don't actually destroy it or allow other cultures to come in and completely crush the laws and the traditions that built this country. And so, and that's when I help you guys understand that this Muslim mayor, he needs to be expelled out of this country if he refuses to change. He needs to literally be kicked out of being a mayor. Whatever has to be done. I don't even know what other stuff he does in secret, but there has to be an investigation, because people like that, they're wicked inside, and they can't be speaking to Christian citizens or any citizens of Dearborn that challenge him because of his support for Hezbollah or Hamas. I mean, that's just a non-negotiable. You can't negotiate with something like that. And it just can't be in America, where we deal with Muslim mayors like this, and where cities are completely controlled by forces of a culture and a religion that is opposite of the American Constitution and even, Christian foundation of our country. And so, as somebody who is, an immigrant to America, somebody who's number one, a follower of Christ. I love the guy, the mayor guy. I want him to hear Jesus, the gospel. He's going to go to hell if he doesn't receive Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And he needs Jesus. He needs to change. He's probably very angry and needs Jesus Christ to change his life. But the thing is that, but as an American, as a citizen, I can't be supporting somebody like that who's speaking against, other citizens who are Christians and who are saying, hey, how can you be naming this, street after a terrorist? There's a problem here, and this problem is only going to get worse. Like I said in the beginning of this video, it's only going to get worse if we don't put an end to it. If we don't come back, to the idea of that you have to treat citizens of, the United States who have been here, for a long time as, you can't just tell them to leave just because they don't support what the city council is doing, or they don't support what the mayor is doing. He's supposed to be a servant of the people and not not somebody who lords it over his own citizens. And that's the problem with America. It's even a nationwide problem. It's not just a problem with that Mahmoud guy. It's a problem with, the California governor. I mean, he's wicked. He's implemented policies where they get rid of the water, during the fires, the Palisades fire, they didn't have enough water there because of his liberal green policies. He is very wicked. He swears all the time and wants to destroy Trump and anyone who supports the MAGA people. Charlie Kirk debated him and he sounded nice, but he's really a snake. So Gavin Newsom is also an evil man, and he's not a Muslim. So I'm not just singling out the Muslim mayor because he's just a Muslim. It's also because he wants to, he's all about not assimilation. It's all about invasion. And so that's what Islam is really practicing. So we can't have, cities taken over by leftism, communism, or Islam, because they do not jive with Western Christian civilization that has built America. And so it's really important for us to understand this, because if we don't understand this, we're going to lose our country slowly and slowly. We just can't allow these things to continue, because it basically disrespects, the citizens of the United States. It disrespects, the foundation of America. It disrespects, even the Christians that are here who do not want, as a Christian, I know this because I speak to Christians, they do not want Muslim takeover of our cities. You can be a Muslim mayor or a governor, but if you're not, pushing Islam, that's fine. But the problem is that a lot of these Muslims, like Ilhan Omar, they push Islam, Palestine, they push all these things, and even radical organizations, terrorist organizations, radical Islamic organizations, because that is their first love. Their first love is not America and, the rule of law that is built on the foundations of Christianity. Their love is Islam, and therefore it's incompatible. In the very end, Islam and America and Christian civilization is not compatible. Now, how do you change that? Well, it has to be Jesus Christ. He has to change the heart of the person. You can do it by force, but I don't want to be violent against people, but if they don't want to be in America, they have to leave. They just have to, they just peacefully have to leave, or else how are we going to even have a country where you have so many, religions that are completely opposite of each other, and laws that are completely opposite of each other. So it's a very big and thorny issue, and it has to be discussed in truth and love and righteousness. But the problem is that this Muslim mayor is a problem. And we have to talk about this, and these people have to step out of office. They can't even be in power, because when these people take power, they institute Sharia and Muslim laws that might not be called Sharia, but the way they do it is basically Sharia-like, and we cannot have that. It has to be illegal in America. Sharia law can never be any law in America at all. Cannot be in any Western country, because it's completely antithetical to Christian civilization, and it has to be stopped. So that's my rant for today. Let me know what you guys think. You might really disagree with me, but my logic's pretty, airtight when it comes to Muslim invasion, or, people who don't want to submit to a country's laws, because I'm using my logic as somebody who would be in China and Poland and Russia. I would have to abide by their laws. I can't be changing their laws, if they have a certain civilization, foundation of laws. Now, the thing is, America is different because it is built on heavily Christian ideals and Bible. And so that's why it's a danger when you have people from other religions push their religion so much. It takes, and it's completely opposite of the Christian law, or laws based on the Bible. When it's completely opposite, that's when you have an overturning of a country in the slow way that can actually get rid of the Bill of Rights. And so the problem is that getting rid of the Bill of Rights is what the goal would be of the left and the Muslims and, the globalist communist agenda is to get rid of the Bill of Rights. And we just can't have that. God gave us the Bill of Rights for a reason, so that America could preach the gospel, expand the gospel, have freedom. And even though America it has an end date to it, God's, we're in the end times. America is going to cease to exist sometime in the future. But as long as we have this country before the Antichrist comes, and even when the Antichrist comes, at least we need to defend our country and try to honor the citizens already in here, and not allow immigrants who don't want to submit to the laws of the land here or the culture to try to change this culture forcefully like that mayor is doing. So hopefully you guys understand this, and God bless you. And I pray that you meet Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, because he's the one who makes all of these things clear. The Bible is the foundation of all truth. I pray that you'd read it and you would understand everything that I'm talking about comes from the biblical worldview.